Well, welcome back. We are inside my 1982 EXP. We're going to be removing this bezel and this lower gauge cluster. So, if you didn't know, this is in the center console of the car. And there's a few things we have to do first. First, we must pull out the cigarette lighter if there is one. If there's anything tall like a cigarette lighter in this power port, this bezel will not want to come out. So we gotta pull that out. I'll pull out the ashtray too. And it's kind of tricky sometimes. There's a few notches, you can hear that. A big clung, clung. There's two of them. And it's that detent right there. Because there's two sets of springs in there that this detent catches on. Thus allowing it to come out only halfway and then almost all the way. And then once you get up past that second detent, this thing just comes flying out at you. But that's all you have to do to remove that. Just pull that out all the way. It's kind of tricky because a lot of times they'll move this inner bracket with it. I'll show you why that moves in a second here. The next step is to take the decorative bezel off. So what you need to do is get underneath, pop it out, tilt the bottom out, and then the front end will drop down because it hides from beneath the center console. So once you pull the bottom out, you need to lower the top down. Now it's all free and clear. Then, to get this cluster out, that's really easy. It's just 3 Phillips head screws. They'll look a lot like this. Only yay long, less than half an inch. But there's only 3. You can see 2 of the points. There's one in this top corner, one in this top corner, and then another that's really hard to see in the bottom corner that I can show you once it's pulled out. But it's only the 3, and once you get it out, it's kind of weird. It's not hard. You just gotta be a little patient. You have to work around some things. Otherwise, you might break some studs like these guys that keep the bezel properly aligned. So just be a little patient, and this will come out without any issue. Then on the back side, once you get those 3 screws out, you have that big old connector to undo, and it's only pressed into it. And it will only go in one way, it will only come out one way. And all you have to do to get it out is just squeeze these 2 sides and pull. It should come out quite easily. The one for the gauge cluster is a bunch bigger and is sometimes a lot harder to get out. But over time they do work themselves out some, or at least some of them work their way out. So if you notice one of your gauges on the lower cluster or the upper cluster stops working, and then so like if you see a couple functions of your cluster stop working, like if the backlight stops working and one of the gauges stops working, then you should pull each cluster out. Whichever one has issues, pull that cluster out and then look on the back, because those connectors sometimes do work themselves loose, believe it or not. It's kind of weird, but it does happen. Whenever you put it back in, put some dielectric grease on all the contacts, and you'll actually want to clean off these copper traces on the contacts. You want to clean those up before you put dielectric grease on them so that they conduct well. And then same with the metal conductors on the connector. You want to clean those out too. And then don't put dielectric grease on the inside, that won't do you any good. So just the outside where they contact. If you want, you can put some on these clips. It'll make it easier to pull it in and out. From my experience, it doesn't seem to make it easier for the thing to work out on its own. That just seems to be something that happens over time. And over time, I mean, 40 years. It takes 20 to 40 years for them to pop out. So it's not all that common, but it happens a lot. But anyhow, that's how you get the cluster out. And I had mentioned earlier that this bracket is loose. Yeah, that's what does it. It fits real loose, actually. Very loose. And it's not really held in with anything. And it's not just this EXP. Every EXP of mine is like this. The bracket here is just plastic. Also, it's not all that firm to begin with. But it doesn't mount to anything. There's no screws, there's no rivets, there's no pop tabs, there's no interlocks, there's no clips, there's nothing. This just fits loosely inside the center console. So once you take the center console out, that insert can slide straight out the back. And that's how you service it. Or if you wanted to paint your center console, but you didn't want this in there while you paint it, you just move all that back, pull it out, and then you're good to go. But that's more or less everything on how to remove the lower cluster and the bezel for it. And then with the bezel, like I said, when you pop out the bottom, it's just these 3 clips. They just go into, or I should say, three plastic prongs that go into a couple metal clips. Those metal clips do rust over time, especially the one around the cluster. It's a different material. I think this is actual steel, and these might be stainless or aluminum. Not sure. Haven't looked too far into it. This might be copper for all I know. But anyhow, this one gets rough over time. If you wanted to make the process of getting that in and out easier, you could always omit, 1 or 2 of the clips. Like maybe remove the middle one but leave the outer 2, or remove the outer 2 and leave the inner one. You could also remove just 1/2 of each of the clips, because these are a 2-piece, or maybe I shouldn't say 2-piece, but a two clip style thing. And like my video for the speaker bezels, there's 2 clips, and by removing one, you make it a lot easier to pull the bezel out, without it working out on its own as you go down the road, which is a very, very neat thing. But it's something to get you used to. That's kind of why you want to be careful with this. You don't want to rip it off, manhandle it too bad, because you will break these. You can plastic weld them back on, but someday they'll break again. It's probably best to, if you're going to do this, remove the center clip but leave the outer 2, because you can see mine smiles, and almost all of mine smile like this. Not sure why. I'm not sure if that's like a heat issue, or maybe the cluster sits too far forward, or what. But just a few little things to keep in mind. But I've made the video long enough, so we'll leave it at that, and we'll see you guys later.